What if I told you that the reason you're struggling financially has absolutely nothing to do with the economy, the stock market, or your paycheck? Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are completely dismantling how you view money. We're going to see how financial struggle is actually an internal, neurological, and grammatical error that's holding you back. We're talking about a reality where the words you use literally build the prison bars, and your own neurotransmitters, they're acting as the guards.
So, what if your grammar is actually keeping you broke? I know it sounds totally insane, right? But researchers actually have a name for this. They call it semantic paralysis. The specific words you use every single day, your verb tenses, your nouns, they're actually creating a neurological distance from wealth. So it's not bad luck. It's an active operating system constructing your financial reality. Stick with me to the end of this explainer because I'm going to hand you the exact linguistic toolkit the elite use to literally rewire their brains for wealth. We're going to dismantle the mainstream myths and give you a super practical guide to reset your financial set point from the inside out. Okay, let's dive right into this with a number, 13. That represents the cognitive bandwidth tax. See, scarcity isn't just about an empty bank account. It's basically a cognitive parasite. When you're constantly stressed about money, it eats up your mental bandwidth. Studies actually show that this state of financial scarcity literally causes a massive 13-point drop in your fluid IQ. You literally have less mental RAM available to solve problems, plan, or control impulses. It completely explains why highly intelligent people, when they're in temporary financial distress, end up making seemingly irrational choices, like taking out 400% interest payday loans. It's not a character flaw, guys. It's just a temporary cognitive failure caused by scarcity.
And this brings us to linguistic relativity. It's fascinating. If you speak a strong future time reference language, like English, you separate the present from the future grammatically. You say, I will save. Well, that creates what's called a temporal disconnect. It literally tricks your brain into viewing your future self as a total stranger. And guess what? That leads to lower savings and higher debt. But on the flip side, if you speak a weak future time reference language where the future is grammatically present, like Chinese or Finnish, where you'd say something more like, it rains tomorrow, your brain sees the present and the future as one continuous timeline. The behavioral outcome of that, native speakers of those languages have 30% higher savings.
So when that temporal disconnect takes over, you basically become a victim of hyperbolic discounting. If you think about the math behind this, there's a delay factor. For someone trapped in a scarcity mindset, that delay is so massively inflated in their head that any future reward, like, say, wealth and retirement, becomes mathematically worthless to them in the present moment. This cognitive tunneling error is exactly what leads to toxic borrowing. A high-interest loan today feels like a lifesaver, and the debt tomorrow? Well, that feels like it's a total stranger's problem. Which, of course, triggers the neurobiology of stress spending. It's the dopamine-cortisol loop. When financial anxiety spikes your cortisol, you probably try to self-regulate with a reward narrative. You know the one. I worked so hard this week, I deserve this. Saying that out loud literally acts as a linguistic trigger for a massive dopamine surge. But here is the really wild part about this. The highest dopamine peak actually happens right before you make the purchase. The product itself is almost totally irrelevant. When you stress spend, you are quite literally just buying a temporary neurological reprieve from your own anxiety. Now, this brings us to a huge paradigm shift, the actual vocabulary of the elite. Most people are completely obsessed with flow words, like income. Income implies movement, right? Psychologically, it's meant to leave. But the elite, they obsess over rooted vocabulary, like assets. An asset suggests permanence. It implies an origin. It's the spring from which the income stream flows. If you're only focusing on flow words, you're just going to increase your burn rate the minute you start making more money. But by mastering rooted vocabulary, you trigger loss aversion for your capital. You actually protect the root. And this rooted mindset completely changes how you behave in the real world. The non-elite fixate on cost. They stare in absolute horror at the dollars leaving their bank account. The elite, however, view expenses entirely through the lens of removing friction. So to an elite thinker, hiring a $50,000 consultant is absolutely not a cost to be avoided. It is a vital tool to eliminate the friction that's slowing them down from hitting, say, a $500,000 revenue goal. It's just a complete reframing of how money is actually deployed. The reason the elite can do this is because they understand that money is just one type of capital. They prioritize 5 of them: spiritual, human, intellectual, social, and finally, financial. Did you catch that? Financial capital is dead last. The elite know that financial capital is actually the most fragile one. It really just acts as a tool to multiply the other 4.
Think about it. If you have the intellectual capital to solve complex problems and the social capital of high-trust networks, the financial capital is naturally just going to flow right from that. Our emotional relationship with money is so deeply embedded in our language.